The rain hammered the windshield like 1,000 tiny accusations, each drop blurring the neon haze of downtown Seattle into a watercolor smear of regret and what-ifs. I gripped the steering wheel of my beat-up Honda Accord, knuckles whitening against the worn leather, as the app pinged again. Another fare, another stranger sliding into my life for $15 and a tip if they felt generous. But this passenger with her designer trench coat dripping onto my faded seats, carried the weight of a world I could never touch, her emerald eyes locking onto mine in the rearview like she was already unraveling me. Harper Ellis. The name hit me later, whispered like a secret between thunderclaps, but in that instant, she was just chaos incarnate. A whirlwind of silk scarves and Chanel perfume cutting through the stale coffee scent clinging to my dashboard. 25, heir to a tech empire that swallowed startups for breakfast, fleeing a gala where champagne flutes clinked like hollow promises. And me? Riley Thompson, 28, scraping by on rideshare gigs between shifts at a dive bar. My dreams of opening a little bookstore buried under student loans, and a mom's hospital bills back in Tacoma. Our worlds shouldn't have collided, not like this, not with her breath catching in the backseat as sobs shook her frame, her voice cracking over the wiper's relentless swish. Just drive, she murmured, voice like velvet torn at the edges. Anywhere but here. I nodded, tires slicing through puddles that mirrored the storm in her gaze, unaware that this detour would drag us both into a love fierce enough to shatter empires and hearts. The city lights streaked past like shooting stars we couldn't wish on, the Accord's engine humming a low, faithful growl beneath the downpour. Harper shifted, her knee brushing the seat back, sending a jolt through me sharper than the lightning forking the sky. I caught her reflection. Flushed cheeks, mascara streaking like war paint from whatever battle she'd lost tonight. The air thickened with the earthy petrichor seeping through the vents, mingling with her citrus-laced fear, and I swallowed hard against the urge to pull over, to turn and ask what monster chased her through these rain-slicked streets. Instead, I flicked on the radio, soft indie folk crackling through the speakers, Bon Iver's falsetto weaving tales of lost winters that felt too damn personal. "You okay back there?" My voice came out rougher than intended, gravel from too many late nights and not enough sleep. She let out a breath, long and shuddering, like exhaling a lifetime of expectations. "No. But thanks for pretending I might be." A pause, heavy as the fog rolling in from the sound, then her laugh, bitter, beautiful, slicing the tension like a knife through fog. "God, listen to me. Spoiled little rich girl playing at tragedy. You must think I'm ridiculous." I glanced back, our eyes meeting in that fractured mirror, hers wide and searching, mine steady despite the flutter in my chest. Ridiculous? Try magnetic. The kind of pull that makes you question if fate's just a glitch in the universe's code. "Nah," I said, turning onto a quieter boulevard lined with glowing diner signs. "Life's too short for judgments. Seen enough passengers to know everyone's carrying something heavier than their luggage." She leaned forward then, elbows on the seat, close enough that I caught the faint jasmine of her skin, warm against the chill drafting through the cracked window. We didn't talk much after that, not at first. The rain eased to a drizzle, pattering like hesitant fingertips on glass, and I wove us through Pioneer Square's shadowed alleys, past brick facades etched with graffiti poetry no one bothered to read. Harper's phone buzzed incessantly, silenced, ignored, each vibration a phantom limb twitching with unresolved drama. Finally, she snatched it up, screen illuminating her face in cold blue. "Family jets waiting at the airport," she muttered, more to herself than me. "Escape to the vineyard in Napa. Because nothing says, fix your mess like overpriced Cabernet." Her thumb hovered, then she powered it off, the device thudding softly into her purse. The silence stretched, broken only by the Accord's tires humming over wet asphalt, a rhythm that synced with my pulse, steady, insistent, alive. By the time we hit the outskirts, the storm had surrendered to a reluctant dawn, gray light filtering through the clouds like smoke from a dying fire. I pulled into a 24-hour lot by the waterfront, the Space Needle looming distant and indifferent against the horizon. "This is as far as the meter's concerned," I said, twisting to face her fully for the first time. Up close, without the rain's veil, she was stunning. High cheekbones dusted with freckles from forgotten summers, lips parted as if mid-confession. But it was her eyes that hooked me, green as the evergreens back home, brimming with a vulnerability that mirrored my own buried aches. You need a real ride? Or just company? The words slipped out unbidden, bold in a way that made my ears burn. Harper's gaze softened, a tentative smile curving her mouth, and she reached out, fingers grazing mine on the gearshift, cool, trembling, electric. That touch lingered, a spark in the dim cabin as she shook her head. Company sounds dangerous. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, studying me like I was a map to uncharted places. What's your story, driver? You don't strike me as the type chasing fares in the dead of night for fun. I chuckled, low and self-deprecating, the sound rumbling in my throat like distant thunder. Riley. And fun's overrated. Bills don't pay themselves. The confession hung there, raw, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between us. The faint creak of leather as I shifted, the briny tang of the bay wafting in, her breath sinking with mine in shallow waves. She nodded as if understanding the weight of unspoken dreams, then whispered, Harper. And tonight? This is the first real thing I've felt in years. We sat like that until the sky blushed pink, engines off, world paused. Her hand stayed in mine, tentative at first, then firm, fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces we'd both been missing. When she finally slid out, leaving a crumpled 20 in her card. In case you ever need a passenger. I watched her silhouette dissolve into the mist, heart pounding with the reckless certainty that this wasn't goodbye. It was the start of something seismic, a fault line cracking open beneath the polished veneer of our lives. Little did I know the aftershocks would test us in ways neither could have mapped. Family legacies clashing like storm fronts, secrets unraveling like frayed seatbelts, and a love blooming fierce and forbidden in the unlikeliest of backseats. Days blurred into a haze of routine fares and phantom scents, jasmine clinging to my collar like a ghost. Seattle's autumn chill settled in, leaves crunching under tires like brittle bones, the air crisp with impending frost and the distant hum of ferries cutting the sound. I told myself it was nothing, just a rainy night anomaly, but Harper's card burned a hole in my wallet, her number taunting me during slow shifts when the app went quiet. Then on a Tuesday evening as fog blanketed the market stalls and the scent of fresh salmon mingled with espresso steam, it pinged. Her name, a beacon in the digital ether. Pick me up at Pike Place? Same accord, same driver. Desperate times. I arrived with minutes to spare, heart slamming against my ribs like a caged bird, parking amid the bustle of tourists snapping photos of flying fish. Harper emerged from the crowd like a vision, cashmere sweater hugging her frame, jeans tucked into boots scuffed just enough to hint at rebellion, hair tousled by the wind off the water. She slid into the front seat this time, uninvited but welcome, buckling up with a grin that lit the gloom. Figured we'd drop the formalities. Backseat feels too much like therapy. Her laugh was lighter now, laced with mischief, and I caught myself mirroring it, the sound foreign yet fitting in the cabin's confines. We drove aimlessly at first, weaving through Capitol Hill's vibrant chaos. Street murals splashed in electric blues and pinks, the thump of bass from corner bars vibrating the windows. Conversation flowed like the craft beers we'd snag later, easy and intoxicating. She confessed the gala fallout. A forced engagement to some venture capitalist twice her age, her father's decree delivered over foie gras and veiled threats. He calls it security, she said, voice dipping low as we idled at a crosswalk, pedestrians blurring past like extras in our private film. I call it a cage. Golden, sure, but still bars. I nodded, fingers drumming the wheel to the rhythm of her words, the leather cool under my palms. My own cage was subtler, nights pouring drafts at the rusty anchor, tips jingling in a jar while dreams of shelves lined with dog-eared paperbacks gathered dust. Sympathy twisted into something sharper when she asked about me, her hand resting casually on the console, inches from mine. You? Pouring your soul into strangers' glasses and steering their escapes. Sounds poetic. Heat crept up my neck, the air between us humming with unspoken voltage. I shared fragments then, the mom fighting lymphoma in a sterile Tacoma room, the scholarship lost to bad luck, the quiet pride in every 5-star review that paid for her next scan. Harper listened, chin propped on her hand, eyes tracing my profile with an intensity that made my throat dry. "You're stronger than you know, Riley. Most people break under half that weight." Her fingers brushed mine deliberately this time. A graze that sent warmth spiraling through me, chasing the chill from the vents. We ended up at Alki Beach as dusk painted the Olympics in bruised purples, the sound lapping at pilings with a rhythmic hush. Sand crunched under our shoes as we walked the pier, her arm linking mine naturally, the contact sending shivers unrelated to the breeze. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries sharp against the waves' murmur, and she stopped suddenly, turning to face me under a sodium lamp's amber glow. It's crazy, right? One ride and suddenly I'm spilling my guts to a stranger who smells like rain and resolve. I swallowed, the salt air thick on my tongue, her proximity a magnetic field pulling me closer. Crazy's underrated. And you're no stranger anymore. The kiss happened then, tentative at the edges, lips brushing soft as sea foam, tasting of lip gloss and salt, her sigh melting into mine like fog dissolving at dawn. It ignited something primal, our hands finding purchase in hair and waistbands, breaths mingling hot and urgent against the night's cool embrace. But we pulled back, foreheads pressed, laughing breathlessly at the audacity of it all. "Not here," she whispered, voice husky, fingers tracing my jaw. "Not yet." We drove back in charged silence, her hand on my thigh a steady anchor, the city's lights twinkling like conspirators. Dropping her at her penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, glass walls reflecting a skyline of ambition, I lingered, engine idling like my resolve. "Text me tomorrow?" she asked, leaning through the window, her touch lingering on my cheek. "Every day," I promised, watching her vanish into the elevator's maw, heart full and fracturing with the thrill of what we'd dared to start. As weeks folded into a fragile rhythm, our rides became ritual, stolen hours masked as errands, the Accord our rolling confessional on Seattle's labyrinthine veins. Mornings dawned crisp, frost etching fractal patterns on the windshield that I scraped away with a gloved hand, the metallic tang of ice mingling with the black coffee steaming from my thermos. Harper would text coordinates. A quiet cafe in Fremont where hipsters nursed oat lattes, or the arboretum's winding paths dusted in fallen maple leaves that crunched like whispered secrets underfoot. I'd arrive, engine purring low, and she'd slip in beside me, always with that smile, wry radiant, unraveling me thread by thread. One such afternoon we escaped to Discovery Park, the city's green lung exhaling pine-scented breaths that tangled with the distant ferry horns. We hiked the trails, boots sinking into mossy earth soft as forgotten promises, her laughter echoing off bluff edges where the sound crashed below in frothy whitecaps. "Race you to the lighthouse," she challenged, bolting ahead, blonde ponytail whipping like a flag in surrender. I caught her midway, tackling gently into a thicket of salal berries, our bodies tumbling in a heap of limbs and gasps, the ground yielding cool and damp beneath us. She pinned me then, straddling my hips, green eyes sparkling with triumph and something deeper, hunger perhaps, or the raw edge of fear. "Got you," she murmured, leaning down, her hair curtaining our faces as lips met in a kiss that tasted of wild berries and wilder abandon. We lingered there, tangled in the underbrush, hands exploring with the caution of thieves, fingertips tracing collarbones, palms pressing into the small of backs, breath sinking in ragged harmony. The world narrowed to sensations, the rustle of ferns brushing skin, the faint brine carried on wind gusts, her pulse fluttering like a trapped moth under my thumb. "This feels like a dream," I whispered against her neck, inhaling the sun-warmed cotton of her shirt. Harper pulled back slightly, expression clouding like the Puget lowlands before a squall. "It's better. Real. But dreams end, Riley. What if this one does too?" The question hung, heavy as the evergreens arching overhead, and I cupped her face, thumbs sweeping away a stray leaf. Then we wake up fighting for more. Back in the car, windows fogged from our heat, we drove with windows cracked to the chill bite of autumn air. Radio murmuring Fleetwood Mac's Landslide in a voice like aged whiskey. Harper opened up more on those rides, her childhood in sprawling Marin estates where nannies swapped shifts like chess pieces, her mother's ghost lingering in unsent letters and a wine cellar's dusty echoes. "Dad built Ellis Tech on code and cutthroat deals," she said, voice threading through the engine's hum as we crossed the floating bridge. Lake Washington glittering obsidian below. Expects me to marry into more code. Some Silicon Valley drone who sees me as an acquisition. Her fist clenched in her lap, nails biting crescents into palm, and I reached over, prying it open gently, interlacing our fingers over the gearshift's worn nub. My own story spilled in return, halting at first, then freer, summer shingling roofs into Tacoma's humid haze, the sting of splinters and satisfaction of a job plum, the bar's sticky floors and patrons' slurred philosophies that taught me humanity's underbelly. You make it sound noble, she teased one evening, as we idled in a Ballard alley, the scent of smoked salmon wafting from nearby shacks. Slinging drinks and dodging drunks? Heroic. I shrugged, heat rising at her proximity, her knee nudged against mine. Pays the rent. And hey, got me here. With you. The admission drew her closer, our kiss slow and deepening, tongues tracing tentative promises amid the creak of suspension as the car settled. But cracks spiderwebbed beneath the idol. Her phone, once silenced, now buzzed with paternal summons. Dinners at Canlis where crystal chimed like judgments. Board meetings where her future was dissected over seared scallops. She'd returned to the Accord pale, eyes rimmed red, collapsing against me with a sigh that rattled like loose change. He knows something's off, she'd murmur, head on my shoulder, the leather seat conforming to our weight. Threatened to cut me off if I don't play the part. I'd hold her then, inhaling the faint lavender of her shampoo, whispering assurances into her hair while my gut twisted with the inequity of it all. Her gilded cage versus my freedom's frayed edges. One night, after a particularly brutal call, "You're throwing away legacy for whims, Harper. Act like an Ellis." We veered off script, tires eating miles south toward Olympia, the state cap at A's dome glowing ethereal in moonlight. We stopped at a roadside diner, neon open flickering like a heartbeat, sliding into a vinyl booth that sighed under us. Over greasy fries and bottomless Joe, steam curling like specters, she laid it bare. The engagement party looming in 2 weeks, invitations etched on cream stock, a noose disguised as celebration. I can't do it, Riley. Not when this. She gestured between us, voice cracking on the edge of a sob. Feels like the only truth I've touched. I took her hand across the scarred formica, calluses rough against her silk, and squeezed. Then don't. Walk away. With me. The words ignited a firestorm in her eyes, hope flaring bright, then dimming under doubt's shadow. You say it like it's simple. But my world's not yours. It's contracts and consequences. Outside, gravel crunched under restless feet as we paced. The diner's gravel lot a stage for our standoff, stars pricking the velvet sky above. Rain threatened again, distant rumbles echoing her turmoil, and I pulled her close, arms a bulwark against the gathering storm. Worlds collide every day, Harper. Ours did. We'll figure the rest. She melted into me, tears hot on my collarbone. Our embrace a defiant anchor as thunder rolled closer, mirroring the tempest brewing in our stolen paradise. Winter crept in like an uninvited guest, frosting Seattle's edges with crystalline filigree that snapped under tires, the air sharp with wood smoke from neighborhood chimneys and the briny undertow of low tide. Our rides evolved into escapes, weekends vanishing into the Cascades, where snow-dusted evergreens bowed under fresh powder, the Accord's chains clinking like muffled applause on winding passes. Harper learned to drive stick in a deserted lot near Snoqualmie, her laughter pealing as gears ground in protest, hands steadying on the wheel under my patient guidance. You're a natural, I'd say, voice warm as the cocoa steaming between us post-lesson, mugs cradled against numb fingers. Intimacy deepened in those hidden hours, bodies mapping each other with the reverence of cartographers charting new continents. One blizzard-bound night in a Leavenworth cabin, borrowed from a bar regular, fire crackling in a stone hearth that bathed the room in amber flickers. We shed layers slowly, revelations unfolding like petals in thaw. Her skin, pale and freckled as Highland moors, flushed under my touch. My scars, faint from roofing mishaps, traced by her lips in silent homage. Whispers wove through the down comforter's hush. Fears of inadequacy, dreams of escape, punctuated by gasps that fogged the window panes, the world outside a wide-out blur. Stay? I breathed into the curve of her neck, pulse thrumming beneath my mouth. Always, she vowed, nails grazing my back in arcs of possession. Our union a symphony of size and skin, profound and profane. Yet the idol frayed at the seams, pulled taut by encroaching realities. Back in the city, her absences stretched. Days swallowed by Ellisteca's gleaming tower in Belltown, where glass reflected a skyline of conquests. I'd wait in the lobby shadows, blending with suited shadows, heart-clenching at glimpses of her in boardrooms, poised yet porcelain fragile. One pickup turned ambush, her father Victor Ellis, materializing like a specter from the elevator, silver temples framing eyes cold as fjord ice. "Miss Thompson," he intoned, voice oiled with false courtesy, hand engulfing mine in a grip like tempered steel. "Harper speaks highly, though I wonder at the influence." The subtext slithered, warnings wrapped in silk, and I met his gaze level, chin lifted against the urge to shrink. "Just providing a ride, sir. Safe travels." Harper emerged then, color draining as she clocked the tableau, linking her arm in mine with possessive grace. "Dad, Riley's a friend." The word hung innocuous, but her squeeze conveyed volumes, nails pressing crescents through my sleeve. We fled to the Accord, engine roaring to life amid the garage's concrete echo, peeling out into traffic that honked in chaotic chorus. "He suspects," she hissed, hands twisting in her lap like knotted ropes. "Hired a PI. Found out about us." The revelation landed like a skid on black ice, my knuckles blanching on the wheel as rain lashed anew, wipers slashing frantic arcs. "Then we go public. Force his hand." Her laugh was brittle, shards catching in her throat. "You don't know Victor. He'd bury us, lawsuits, smears, the works." Tension coiled tighter, manifesting in stolen moments laced with urgency. A midnight rendezvous at Gasworks Park, relics of old gasification tanks looming skeletal against the moon, where we argued under their rusted arches, voices echoing off metal husks. "I can't lose you to his empire," I pleaded, wind whipping my hair like Medusa's serpents, the lake's lap a mournful underscore. Harper paced, boots scuffing oxidized flakes, expression fracturing. "And I can't drag you into war. You're clean, Riley, your life, your fight. This would taint it." Her words stung, salt in fresh wounds, and I closed the distance, cupping her face amid the gale. "Love isn't clean. It's messy, worth the mud." We kissed fiercely then, desperate as drowning souls, hands fisting coats against the chill that seeped bone deep. The engagement loomed like a guillotine, invitations arriving crisp in my mailbox. A cruel jest, embossed script mocking our clandestine vows. Harper's calls grew frantic, voice threading static from Napa hideaways where vineyard mists cloaked her isolation. "He's doubling down. Private jet to the party, security details. Says it's non-negotiable." I'd drive aimless loops then, city lights smearing into auroras of anxiety, fingers drumming to phantom rhythms while her sobs crackled through the speaker. Solidarity came in gestures. A care package shipped to the estate, dog-eared copies of Audre Lorde and handwritten notes tucked in pages, scents of Seattle rain pressed between leaves. Climax brewed on the eve, a text summoning me to the waterfront's edge. Anthony's home, ferries chugging like weary beasts into the night. I found her there, silhouette etched against bioluminescent waves, dress billowing like a sail in surrender. "I told him," she announced, turning, eyes wild with adrenaline's fire. "About us." The whole defiant truth. Shock rooted me, gravel-biting sols as she recounted the showdown, dinner plates shattering like illusions, his roar echoing off vaulted ceilings. "You'll ruin us, girl." "For what? A nobody with grease under her nails." Her retort steel-wrapped. "For everything real." "Goodbye, Dad." We collapsed onto a bench then, her head on my shoulder, body racked with aftershocks, the harbor's bell buoy tolling solemn intervals. But victory soured swift, his retaliation a blitz of calls to my employers, whispers poisoning the rideshare pool, bar shifts evaporating like mist. Bills piled, mom's treatments teetering, and doubt crept in, insidious as dawn fog. Harper pounded on my apartment door at 3 a.m. Rain-soaked and shattered, collapsing into my arms amid the scent of damp wool and despair. He froze my accounts, cut me off cold. We huddled on the threadbare couch, radiator hissing like an accusatory snake, her tears soaking my tea. Fight or flight? I murmured, stroking her back in slow circles. Together, she whispered, resolve hardening like frost on glass. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, but in that crucible our bond forged unbreakable. Love's anvil striking sparks from adversity's blow. Spring unfurled tentative in Seattle's embrace. Cherry blossoms drifting like confetti from a subdued parade, carpeting sidewalks in pink ephemera that stuck to wiper blades during our inaugural post-storm drive. Victor's siege had stripped us bare, Harper crashing on my sagging futon, her designer wardrobe swapped for thrift store flannel that hung loose on her frame. My Accord sidelined by a blown transmission, replaced by a borrowed Vespa that sputtered through traffic like a reluctant confession. We scavenged resilience from scraps. Pop-up poetry slams in Fremont warehouses where her verses, raw rhythmic odes to fractured legacies, drew snaps from tattooed crowds. My bar tab replaced by shifts at a queer cafe in Capitol Hill, steaming pour-overs and scones baked with lavender from the windowsill herb pot. Mornings became our sanctuary, sunlight slanting through cracked blinds to gild the kitchenette's Formica counters, where we'd brew diner-strong coffee, grounds grinding gritty under the press's plunger. Harper, hair sleep-tousled and eyes soft with unguarded peace, would perch on the stool, recounting job hunts, barista gigs that fizzled, freelance coding for indie apps that trickled just enough to cover her mom's experimental trial back east. Feels like starting over, she'd say, stirring honey into her mug with a clink that echoed domesticity's quiet joy, the steam curling like question marks. I'd lean across, kissing the corner of her mouth, tasting sweetness and survival. We are. Better version. Challenges lingered, specters at the feast. Collectors calling with voices like rusted hinges. Victor's lawyers circling with cease and desist missives disguised as concern. One evening, as twilight bled violet over Lake Union, we picnicked on a frayed blanket amid houseboat decks bobbing gentle. The waters slap a lullaby to our makeshift meal of PB&JS and Pilford Park apples, crisp and tart on the tongue. He emailed, Harper admitted, passing me a bruised fruit juice dribbling sticky down her chin. Apology wrapped in conditions, come home, end this phase, and all's forgiven. Her mimicry dripped disdain, and I wiped her face with my thumb, heart clenching at the vulnerability beneath her armor. Your call. But home's here now. She nodded, leaning into me, the evening's chill nipping at exposed ankles as fireflies began their Morse code flicker. Growth bloomed in unexpected furrows. Harper volunteered at a women's shelter in the Central District, her organizational prowess honed in boardrooms, channeling into supply runs and story hours for wide-eyed kids, their giggles a balm to her bruised edges. I'd join on off days, hauling donations through rain-glazed streets, the scent of donated soup mingling with crayon's waxy innocence. Look at you, she'd tease post-shift, toweling my damp hair in the shelter's cramped lounge, fluorescent buzz overhead. Hero in flannel. Retribution came softer. I enrolled in night classes at community college, fingers cramping over essays on queer-lit icons, her red pen marking margins with encouragement that warmed like hearth glow. Culmination crested on a solstice eve, full moon silvering the sound as we boarded a creaky charter from Bainbridge destination, a secluded cove where bioluminescent plankton danced like submerged stars. Victor had thawed incrementally, stilted calls evolving to tentative lunches at neutral ground bistros, where his admissions emerged halting, voice gravelly over Cipino steam. Pushed too hard. Lost sight of you. Forgiveness wasn't absolution but bridge building. Planks laid cautious over chasms. Harper's response measured. Earn it. Meet us where we are. On that boat, waves rocking gentle as a cradle, we stood at the rail, salt spray beating lashes, her hand warm in mine against the varnish's chill. Remember that first ride? She murmured, wind tugging her scarf like a lover's tease. Rain like judgment, you like salvation. I pulled her close, inhaling ocean and her, eternal now. Led here. To this. We scattered wildflower seeds into the wake, symbols of roots we'd plant, a community garden plot in Beacon Hill waiting, soil turned rich with composted pasts. Below, plankton ignited in our wake, trails of azure fire spelling infinity. Back ashore, dawn painting the ferry terminal in roseate hues, we drove, her behind the wheel of a salvaged Civic, me navigating with a dog-eared atlas, the miles to a future self-forged. Love, we'd learned, wasn't the unexpected passenger but the journey claimed, detours embraced. In quiet moments, breath sinking over shared quilts, we'd whisper gratitudes. For storms that cleared skies, for passengers who became partners. Victor's empire loomed distant, a footnote to our narrative reconciled, not ruling. And in the rearview, Seattle receded, not as escape but launchpad. Our story etched in heartbeats, enduring as the tide's eternal pull.